Shadows of Solitude. Marcus Davenport's fingertips hovered over the keyboard, trembling slightly, as they always did when the episodes threatened to begin. From the window of his penthouse, the sprawling cityscape of Riverton glittered beneath a canvas of stars, beautiful and distant. Much like the world itself had become to him. "Sir," came a voice from the doorway. Ms. Reynolds called again about the charity gala. Without turning, Marcus replied, "Tell her what I always tell her, Vincent. That you'll send a donation but won't attend," his assistant finished with a sigh. "This makes the 4th year, sir. People are talking." "Let them talk," Marcus murmured, watching his own reflection in the glass. At 35, he still maintained the sharp features that had once graced magazine covers, before he'd withdrawn from public life. The scar along his jaw was barely visible now, but it wasn't the physical marks that kept him isolated in this tower of steel and silence. It was the noise, the crushing, overwhelming noise that only he could hear. Vincent placed the folder on the desk. "The board needs these signed by morning, and Dr. Harlow called. He has a new specialist he wants you to meet." Marcus turned, eyebrow raised. Another neurologist with another miracle cure? Actually, no. A music therapist. A bitter laugh escaped him. Music? That's his solution? Dr. Harlow was quite insistent. He believes her approach might help with your auditory hypersensitivity condition. Marcus waved his hand dismissively, returning to the window. Schedule it if you must, but don't expect miracles. After Vincent left, Marcus pressed his palm against the glass. Below, tiny figures moved through their lives, talking, laughing, touching, experiencing the world in ways he'd forgotten. The irony wasn't lost on him. Marcus Davenport, the man who had revolutionized digital communication, couldn't bear the sound of a human voice without experiencing debilitating pain. Olivia Winters tucked a strand of auburn hair behind her ear as she studied the file. The sticky note from Dr. Harlow simply read, "Challenging case. If anyone can help, it's you." The small office in the Riverton Medical Center's rehabilitation wing smelled of lemon polish and hope. The latter being something Olivia never surrendered, even with her most difficult patients. Her colleague, Dr. Jameson, leaned against the doorframe. "You're not seriously considering taking on Marcus Davenport, are you?" "Why not?" Olivia glanced up, curious. "Because he's chewed through every specialist in the city. The man's a recluse with more money than patience. Word is he hasn't attended a public event in 4 years." Olivia flipped through the medical history. Auditory hypersensitivity triggered by trauma. Interesting. Interesting isn't the word most would use, Jameson warned. More like impossible. Olivia's fingers traced the notes. Her method, using carefully calibrated music therapy to retrain the brain's response to auditory stimuli, had helped dozens of patients, but Davenport's condition was extreme, documented as causing physical pain when exposed to certain frequencies of human speech. "Everyone deserves silence from their demons, Jameson," she said softly. "Even billionaires." The next morning found Olivia riding an elevator to the top floor of Davenport Tower, carrying only her tablet and a small case of specialized equipment. The penthouse doors opened to reveal a stunning apartment, decorated in shades of blue and gray, colors of calm, she noted. Vincent met her with a practiced smile. "Miss Winters, Mr. Davenport has agreed to 20 minutes. "That's all I need today," she replied. When Vincent led her into the study, she wasn't prepared for the man who stood with his back to her, silhouetted against floor-to-ceiling windows. Tall and broad-shouldered, Marcus Davenport exuded tension in every line of his body. "Mr. Davenport," Vincent announced softly. "Ms. Olivia Winters." Marcus turned, his face a careful mask. "Ms. Winters. I understand you think you can fix me." Olivia set her case down. "Actually, I don't believe you're broken." Something flickered across his features. Surprise, perhaps. Your condition is neurological, not a character flaw. She continued, keeping her voice measured and low. I'm here to explore whether music therapy might help recalibrate how your brain processes certain sounds. And if it doesn't, then we'll have spent a few hours listening to some excellent compositions. She smiled. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. For a moment Marcus studied her, his expression unreadable. Then he gestured to a chair. 20 minutes, as agreed. As Olivia unpacked her equipment, she felt his eyes tracking her movements. The room hummed with unspoken questions, with barriers built from years of isolation. Before we begin, she said, I need to understand. What does silence mean to you, Mr. Davenport? His answer came after a long pause, soft as a confession. Safety. In that single word, Olivia heard everything she needed to know. This wasn't just about sound, it was about trust, and that would take more than 20 minutes to rebuild. Resonant frequencies. 3 weeks into their sessions, Olivia had established a routine with Marcus that seemed almost ceremonial in its precision. Each Tuesday and Friday at exactly 2 p.m., Vincent would escort her to the east wing of the penthouse where Marcus had converted a room specifically for their therapy. The walls were lined with acoustic panels, and the lighting remained dim, concessions to a man whose senses seemed perpetually raw. Today, as Olivia arranged her equipment, she noticed something different. A grand piano in the corner that hadn't been there before. It arrived yesterday, Marcus explained, catching her glance. He stood at a careful distance, hands clasped behind his back. I thought it might be useful. Olivia smiled, trying to contain her excitement. Do you play? I did, before. The word hung between them. Before the accident, before the pain, before the world became too loud to bear. According to his file, Marcus had been caught in an industrial explosion at one of his company's research facilities. The trauma had triggered his rare condition, hypersensitive perception syndrome, making ordinary sounds, especially human voices, physically painful. May I? Olivia gestured to the piano. Marcus nodded once, rigid as he took his usual seat across the room. Over the weeks, she'd learned to read his small signals, the tightening around his eyes when sounds approached his pain threshold, the way his fingers curled slightly when he was fighting to maintain control. She played a simple progression, watching him carefully. The piano's rich tones filled the room, and remarkably, Marcus's shoulders lowered a fraction. Bach, he asked. You have a good ear, she replied, continuing to play softly. Most of my patients respond well to Baroque music. The mathematical precision seems to create a framework the brain can anticipate and process. Marcus closed his eyes briefly. It's tolerable. For Marcus Davenport, this was high praise indeed. Over their previous sessions, Olivia had introduced carefully calibrated tones, gradually expanding the range of frequencies he could tolerate without pain. Progress had been minimal but measurable. I've been reviewing your responses to different sound patterns, she said, keeping her voice in the lower register she discovered caused him less discomfort. There's something interesting I'd like to try today. She opened her tablet and pulled up a specialized program. This combines tones that have been neutral for you with those that typically trigger discomfort, but at a much lower volume, and mixed with binaural beats that promote relaxation. Marcus's expression remained skeptical, but he nodded. Proceed. As the sounds began to play through her specialized speakers, Olivia watched him closely. His breathing remained steady, his posture unchanged. Nothing? She asked after several minutes. It's different, he admitted. Less intrusive. Olivia made a note. Can we try something? I'd like to speak while the track is playing. Just a few sentences. His jaw tightened, but he gave a curt nod. she began to speak softly about the music theory behind what they were hearing, keeping her voice measured. Remarkably, Marcus showed no signs of his usual distress. It's working as a buffer, she realized aloud. The structured sounds are creating a framework that helps your brain process my voice differently. It's still there, Marcus said, the pressure. But it's muted, bearable. For the first time in their sessions, something like hope flickered in his eyes. The following Friday, Vincent greeted Olivia with unusual warmth. "Whatever you're doing, it's working," he confided as they walked the hallway. He actually took a video call yesterday, first one in months. Inside the music room, Marcus was seated at the piano, though he wasn't playing. As Olivia entered, he stood with that formal grace that seemed to define him. "I've been practicing with the audio files you sent," he said without preamble. "And I managed dinner with Vincent and my sister last night, in person." His voice remained neutral, but Olivia caught the significance of this achievement. "That's wonderful progress," she said, genuinely pleased. "How did it feel?" Marcus considered this. "Like swimming underwater. Everything was muffled, but I could participate." He gestured to her equipment. "I have a proposal. My company is developing new audio processing technology. With your expertise, we could potentially create something more refined than these temporary measures." Olivia set down her case, intrigued. "What did you have in mind?" "A customizable system that adapts in real time to environmental sounds." He moved to a sleek laptop on the desk. "I've been working on preliminary designs." As they reviewed his ideas, Olivia became aware of a subtle shift. For the first time, Marcus was sitting close enough that she could see the flecks of amber in his hazel eyes, could notice how his hands moved with unexpected elegance across the keyboard. "This could help a lot of people with sensory processing issues," she said, impressed by his technical solutions. "That's the idea." Their shoulders nearly touched as they leaned over the screen. Olivia was suddenly conscious of his cologne, sandalwood, and something citrus, and the way his usual tension seemed diminished. "Why music therapy?" he asked unexpectedly. "What drew you to this field?" The question caught her off guard. Marcus rarely showed interest in personal details. "My brother had selective mutism after our parents died," she explained. "He couldn't speak, but he could sing. Music became our language when words failed." Marcus nodded slowly. "And now you help others find their voice. Or their silence," she added. "Sometimes what people need most is control over their sensory world." Something shifted in his expression. A recognition, perhaps. For a moment, the barriers between therapist and patient seemed to thin. Then his phone buzzed, breaking the moment. Marcus glanced at it, his features immediately hardening. "Is everything all right?" Olivia asked. "The board is pressing for my appearance at the Innovation Summit next month." His voice had reverted to its clinical detachment. "They believe my continued absence is affecting investor confidence." Would that be possible with the audio buffers? Marcus stood abruptly. A controlled environment for 20 minutes is one thing. A convention center with hundreds of voices is quite another. The wall had returned, brick by invisible brick. "We have time," Olivia said gently. "Progress isn't measured in grand gestures." He turned to the window, his silhouette sharp against the afternoon light. "In my world, Miss Winters, everything is measured, quantified, and judged, including progress." Yet as their session ended, Marcus did something unprecedented. As Vincent arrived to escort Olivia out, Marcus extended his hand to her. A simple handshake, the kind of basic human contact most took for granted. His fingers were cool against hers, the touch brief but deliberate. "Until Tuesday," he said. Riding down in the elevator, Olivia reflected on that small gesture. In the language of a man who had built walls between himself and the world, it spoke volumes. She wasn't just helping him manage sounds anymore. She was helping him find his way back to human connection. The autumn rain fell in steady sheets outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of Marcus's penthouse. Olivia sat cross-legged on the music room floor, surrounded by scattered pages of notes and frequency charts. 2 months into their therapy, the formal boundaries had gradually softened. Today, Marcus sat not across the room, but merely a few feet away, his back against the piano bench as they reviewed their progress. "The pattern is clear," Olivia said, tapping a highlighted section of data. "Your tolerance improves significantly with lower registers and deteriorates with higher pitches, especially female voices in the upper range." Marcus nodded, studying the charts with the analytical precision that had built his tech empire. "Which explains why Vincent never triggered episodes as severely as my sister or female board members." "Exactly." Olivia gathered the papers into a neater pile. "What's fascinating is how quickly your brain is adapting to the modulation program. You're essentially retraining neural pathways that were damaged during the trauma." A comfortable silence fell between them, punctuated only by the gentle patter of rain. These quiet moments had become more frequent, times when words weren't necessary, and the silence itself felt healing rather than isolating. "Tell me about the day it happened," Olivia said softly. Marcus stiffened slightly. In all their sessions, he had never discussed the specifics of the accident that had triggered his condition. "It's in my file," he deflected. "Medical facts, yes, but not your experience." He looked away, his profile sharp against the gray afternoon light. For a moment, Olivia thought he would retreat behind his walls again. Then he spoke, his voice low and controlled. "I was testing a new audio driver for our immersive reality platform. Something malfunctioned. The feedback loop created a sound. I can't even describe it. Like glass breaking inside my skull." His fingers curled slightly against his thigh. "When I woke up in the hospital 3 days later, every voice, every sound was like physical pain. The doctors called it an extreme neurological response to auditory trauma." "And your family?" A muscle twitched in his jaw. "My sister Naomi tried to understand. The rest of the board saw it as weakness. Inconvenient. They wanted to hide me away. Have me sign over control while I recovered." "So you hid yourself instead," Olivia observed. "I protected myself," he corrected, "and continued to run my company, just from a distance." Olivia let that sink in, recognizing the loneliness beneath his pragmatic explanation. "And the rumors about your condition?" A sardonic smile touched his lips. "People fear what they don't understand. Some employees thought I'd had a mental breakdown. Others believed I'd been disfigured. The business press called it Davenport's disappearance. Speculated I was everything from terminally ill to secretly building an underground tech utopia. The truth being far less dramatic. The truth being far more debilitating," he countered. "Try explaining to a boardroom that you can't attend meetings because the sound of their voices causes physical pain." Olivia leaned forward, meeting his gaze directly. "Yet here we are, having a conversation without your audio buffers for the first time." Marcus blinked, suddenly realizing she was right. The specialized background tones that usually played during their sessions had been turned off nearly 20 minutes ago. "I didn't notice," he said, genuine surprise coloring his voice. "Because you're healing," Olivia said simply. Something unguarded crossed his features. Vulnerability, perhaps, or hope. "Stand up," she said impulsively. "Why? Just trust me." Hesitantly, Marcus rose to his feet. Olivia moved to the piano and played a simple, flowing melody. "Close your eyes," she instructed. "Listen not just with your ears, but with your body." Looking skeptical but willing, Marcus closed his eyes. The music filled the space between them. Music isn't just sound, Olivia continued, keeping her voice gentle as she played. It's mathematics, physics, emotion given structure. Your brain understands this inherently. She modulated into a minor key, watching as his breathing synchronized with the rhythm. Now, she said, I'm going to stop playing and just talk. Keep your eyes closed and remember the pattern of the music. Her fingers stilled on the keys, but she continued her narration, matching the cadence and rhythm of the piece she'd been playing. Your condition isn't about broken ears or damaged pathways, she said, approaching him slowly. It's about trust. Your brain doesn't trust what it hears anymore. We're rebuilding that trust, note by note, word by word. She was standing directly before him now, close enough to see the faint scar along his jawline. Open your eyes, Marcus. He did, and found her much nearer than expected. To her satisfaction, he didn't step back. You didn't flinch, she observed quietly. My voice didn't hurt you. No, he admitted. It didn't. Something shifted between them in that moment. A recognition, perhaps, that their relationship had evolved beyond therapist and patient. The penthouse intercom suddenly buzzed, shattering the moment. Sir, Vincent's voice came through. Ms. Reynolds is here with the quarterly reports, and she's brought Mr. Thorne from the board. Marcus's expression immediately closed. Tell them I'll be right out. To Olivia's surprise, he didn't reach for his audio buffer device, the custom earpiece he typically used for meetings. No buffer? She asked. Let's see if your therapy works in the real world, he replied with grim determination. 40 minutes later, Marcus returned to the music room, where Olivia had been organizing her notes. His face was taut with strain, but there was also a glimmer of triumph in his eyes. Well, she prompted. Uncomfortable, he admitted, but I got through it without incident. Olivia smiled. That's incredible progress. Thorne noticed the difference, Marcus added, pacing now. He asked if I'd be reconsidering my stance on public appearances. And will you? He stopped, turning to face her. That depends. On whether you'd consider attending the Innovation Summit with me next month. The words came out in a rush, unlike his usual measured speech, as my consultant. Olivia felt heat rise to her cheeks at the slight pause before consultant. Is that what I am? Marcus moved closer, his confidence seemingly bolstered by his successful meeting. What would you like to be, Olivia? The use of her first name, another first, sent an unexpected thrill through her. Before she could respond, however, Vincent appeared at the doorway. Sir, I've brought the files you requested on Miss Winters. Olivia froze. Files? Marcus shot Vincent a warning look, but it was too late. What files, Marcus? She asked, her voice cooling. Vincent, realizing his mistake, quietly retreated. Marcus ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of discomfort. Standard background checks for all specialists who work with me. Background checks, she repeated flatly. And when were you planning to mention this invasion of privacy? It's not what you think. Then explain it to me. Her therapist's calm was rapidly eroding. What exactly do you need to know about me that you couldn't simply ask? Marcus's jaw tightened. My condition makes me vulnerable. I need to know who I'm letting into my life. Into your life? Or just your soundproofed rooms? The hurt in her voice surprised even Olivia. She began gathering her equipment with sharp movements. Olivia. Dr. Winters. She corrected. Let's maintain professional boundaries, Mr. Davenport, especially since you've been investigating me without my knowledge or consent. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. His voice no longer caused her pain, but her words clearly wounded him. I trust very few people, he said quietly. Trust works both ways. She closed her case with a decisive click. I've spent months helping you rebuild connection with the world, while you've been… what? Looking for flaws? Reasons to keep your distance? Marcus reached out as if to touch her arm, then stopped himself. That's not fair. You know why I can't afford to. To let people in. Olivia cut him off. Yes, I know the medical reason. But I'm beginning to wonder if your condition became convenient. A perfect excuse to control every interaction. To keep everyone at arm's length. The words landed like slaps, and Marcus stepped back as though she had actually struck him. Session's over, Olivia said, moving toward the door. I think we both need to reconsider our professional relationship. As she left, the silence in the penthouse felt different than before. Not peaceful, but hollow, echoing with all they hadn't said. H2, dissonance and harmony. 3 weeks passed without word from Marcus. Olivia threw herself into her work at the clinic, but thoughts of him intruded at unexpected moments. While driving home in the rain, during the quiet hours before dawn, whenever she touched piano keys. Dr. Jameson noticed her distraction. Trouble with the billionaire? He asked one afternoon, leaning against her office doorway. Former patient, she corrected, not looking up from her paperwork. He studied her face. Must have been some falling out. The clinic received another donation from Davenport Industries yesterday. Directors practically doing cartwheels down the hall. Olivia's pen paused. What for? Expanding the music therapy department. New equipment. Research funding. Your name was specifically mentioned in the proposal. She set down her pen, emotions warring within her. He can't just end. By forgiveness, Jameson finished. Probably not, but it's a hell of an apology. After he left, Olivia sat motionless at her desk, remembering Marcus's face the last time she'd seen him. The raw hurt beneath his careful composure. Perhaps they'd both built walls in their own ways. Her contemplation was interrupted by a text from an unknown number. Innovation Summit begins tomorrow. Your pass is waiting if you're willing. M. The convention center buzzed with activity. Hundreds of voices overlapping. Screens flashing. Music pulsing from various exhibits. Olivia hesitated at the entrance, wondering if she was making a mistake. The badge bearing her name felt heavy in her hand. Dr. Winters, a familiar voice greeted her. Vincent stood nearby, impeccable as always in his tailored suit. His expression was carefully neutral, but relief flickered in his eyes. I wasn't sure you'd come, he admitted. Neither was I, she replied honestly. How is he? Nervous. Determined, Vincent gestured toward the main hall. He's scheduled to speak in 20 minutes. First public appearance in 4 years. As they navigated through the crowd, Vincent added quietly, he fired the security firm that conducted your background check. And he asked me to give you this. He handed her a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten note. You were right. Some walls protect us. Others just keep us imprisoned. Men. The main stage was surrounded by eager tech journalists and industry insiders. A buzz ran through the crowd as Marcus Davenport, the reclusive CEO, stepped into public view for the first time in years. From her position at the side of the hall, Olivia studied him. He wore no visible audio devices, though she suspected he might be using some of the technology they'd developed together. His posture betrayed tension, but his face remained composed as he approached the microphone. Good afternoon, he began, his voice steady despite the sea of faces before him. Some of you may have wondered where I've been these past years. A murmur rippled through the audience. Today, I want to share both a personal journey and a professional breakthrough. His eyes scanned the crowd and found Olivia. Something in his expression softened momentarily. 4 years ago, I developed a neurological condition that made human voices, especially in crowds like this, physically painful to hear. The admission, sent journalists scrambling for their devices, but Marcus continued, undeterred. Through innovative sound therapy and neural retraining, I've not only found ways to manage this condition, but to transform it into something valuable. He gestured, and the screens behind him illuminated with technical specifications for what he called adaptive audio processing. What began as a personal solution has evolved into technology that could help millions with auditory processing disorders, sensory sensitivities, and hearing impairments. As he outlined the technology, Olivia felt a complex pride. His struggle had indeed become something transformative, not just for him, but potentially for others who suffered in silence. After the presentation, as attendees crowded forward to speak with Marcus, Olivia slipped outside to a quiet courtyard. The afternoon sun warmed stone benches surrounding a small fountain. She wasn't surprised when, 15 minutes later, Marcus found her there. "You came," he said simply, taking a seat beside her. "I was curious," she admitted. "No audio buffers today?" He shook his head. "Just the inner ear monitors we designed. They worked perfectly." A comfortable silence settled between them, punctuated by the gentle splash of water. "I'm sorry," he said finally. "About the investigation. It was a breach of trust." "Yes, it was." She turned to face him. "What did you find in those files that was so important?" Marcus met her gaze directly. "That your brother died 3 years ago. That you've dedicated your research to helping people like him. That you turned down positions at prestigious private clinics to work with patients who couldn't afford specialized care." Olivia looked away, unexpected tears stinging her eyes. "So now you know my secrets too." "Not secrets," he corrected gently. "Just parts of your symphony I hadn't heard yet." His hand found hers on the bench, a deliberate choice, not an accidental touch. "The truth is, Olivia, I wasn't afraid of what I'd find. I was afraid of what I already knew." "Which was?" "That, for the first time in 4 years, someone made me want to listen again." His fingers tightened around hers. "And that terrified me more than any pain ever could." The final movement. Spring arrived with a riot of color in the rooftop garden of Davenport Tower. What had once been a sterile space was now alive with carefully cultivated plants, comfortable seating, and the soft sounds of wind chimes designed to create soothing tonal patterns. Marcus stood at the railing, watching the city below with new eyes. 6 months had transformed many things. His company had launched the adaptive audio technology to acclaim. The music therapy wing at Riverton Medical Center had tripled in size, and most significantly, the walls that had imprisoned him for years had begun to fall away. The elevator doors opened, and Olivia stepped into the garden, her smile warming as she spotted him. "Successful trial?" he asked, referring to her morning session with a young patient using their collaborative technology. "Beyond expectations," she confirmed, joining him at the railing. Jamie spoke 3 full sentences today while wearing the adaptive earpieces. His mother cried. Pride flickered across Marcus's features. And the sensory processing group. 7 new participants this week. The waiting list keeps growing. Their partnership had evolved organically. His technical expertise combined with her therapeutic methodology, creating innovations neither could have achieved alone. The professional collaboration had flourished alongside their personal relationship, each strengthening the other. "I have something for you," Marcus said, leading her to a covered object near the garden's center. He removed the cloth to reveal a custom-designed piano, its sleek lines incorporating the sound technology they'd perfected together. "It's calibrated to your playing style," he explained. "The acoustics adapt to emphasize healing frequencies." Olivia ran her fingers over the keys, producing rich tones that seemed to vibrate with unusual clarity. "For your office at the clinic," he added, "though I was hoping you might play it here first," as she began a gentle melody, Marcus closed his eyes, allowing the music to flow through him without resistance or fear. When she finished, he remained still, savoring the resonance. "I've been thinking about what you said months ago," he said, opening his eyes, "about trust being at the core of my condition. And you were right. The accident didn't just damage my auditory processing. It shattered my trust in the world around me, in my own perceptions." He took her hands in his. "You taught me to listen again, Olivia, not just to sounds, but to what they contain: truth, connection, vulnerability." A light breeze stirred the wind chimes, creating a delicate counterpoint to their conversation. "There's something I need to tell you," Olivia said, a hint of nervousness in her voice. Stanford Medical reached out again about heading their new neurosensory research department. Marcus's expression remained steady, though his grip tightened slightly. "An incredible opportunity." "Yes. Are you going to take it?" Olivia's eyes held his. "That depends. On whether there might be room for a Davenport Technologies research partnership with Stanford, one that would allow me to split my time between California and here." Understanding dawned on Marcus's face, followed by relief and something deeper. "I think that could be arranged," he said, drawing her closer. "Though I should warn you, I've become quite attached to our sessions." Her laugh mingled with the garden sounds. "I'm not sure we can call them sessions anymore." "What would you call them then?" "Life," she answered simply. "The kind where silence and sound both have their place." As the afternoon light gilded the garden around them, Marcus reflected on the journey from isolation to connection. The world was still loud, often overwhelming, but now its cacophony contained music he was learning to hear, the complex, imperfect symphony of human experience that no walls could truly shut out. He had once believed his condition was a prison sentence, confining him to solitude. Now he understood it had also been a doorway to something profound, the discovery that true healing came not from silence, but from finding the courage to listen, to others, to the world, and finally, to his own heart. When Olivia reached up to touch his face, he didn't flinch or pull away. Instead, he leaned into her touch, embracing both its gentleness and its truth. The man who had once feared human contact now found in it his greatest strength, his voice blending perfectly with hers in the quiet harmony they had created together. "Everyone feared his secret," Olivia murmured, echoing the phrase that had once defined him. Marcus smiled, completing the thought as he drew her close, until her music changed his world.